I shot her 5 times. How is she still standing?
Bitch isn't standing now.
Don't play it at home alone at night.
After you?
Last episode, we talked about George Romero and his involvement in Resident Evil. In case you didn't see the last episode, here are the cliff notes. He was fired! Wow! Wasn't that insightful? Now you can say that you are caught up. Now we can move on comfortably and talk about Resident Evil 2002. After Romero failed to deliver the goods that Capcom was looking for, the project moved on without him. Paul W.S. Anderson wrote a competing script which was eventually chosen by Capcom. They then asked him to direct the film as well. He most famously directed Event Horizon and Soldier, both underappreciated films at the time of their release. But his most famous work was as the director of Mortal Kombat, which I still feel is one of the best video game movies ever made. Was it a perfect adaptation of the game? No, but it was pretty damn close. Really, the only major gripe any of us ever had was that Sub-Zero and Scorpion were hanging out. And if you're not familiar with the games, they are mortal enemies. They should never be in the same scene together unless they're trying to kill each other. But the movie actually mentions why these two are in the same room together without killing each other.
Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Deadliest of enemies. But slaves under my power.
Look at that, a movie actually acknowledging one of the stupid decisions they made. You gotta love it. And I think that was part of the reason why people weren't freaking out when Anderson was named the director of Resident Evil. Because he had done such a good job with Mortal Kombat, we just assumed he would do that good of a job with Resident Evil. Boy, were we wrong.
I can kiss you, bitch.
Then what happened? I'm not really sure. Maybe Anderson stating that the movie would have no video game tie-ins was a big part of it. I mean, think about that. This is the director of Mortal Kombat saying that the new Resident Evil movie wouldn't have any video game tie-ins. Like, what? Mortal Kombat is the perfect example of what a video game movie should be. You want to please the fan base that already exists for the game. You don't want to alienate them, so you want to try to keep it as close to the story as you can. But your goal is to make money, and you want to bring in non-fans, so you've got to simplify things, and that's exactly what he did. He made the movie in a way that fans of Mortal Kombat would love it, and non-fans would love it. It's a win-win. But Resident Evil is not Mortal Kombat. It's the exact opposite. Resident Evil is an example of what happens when you stray too far from the fucking source material. The movie shares very little with the game. None of the characters are present. Most of the plot elements are sort of there. There's a mansion, a T-virus breakout in a lab. There's zombies. Commandos are sent in to fix the fucking situation. One of their own betrays them. Almost everyone dies. And the movie ends without anything really being resolved. And this is my major gripe with the movie. It's not Resident Evil. It's Mila Jovovich vehicle to be a zombie killer. That's what it should have been called. Imagine that. That's the title of the movie. Paul W.S. Anderson presents Mila Jovovich, Zombie Killer. Now that's a movie I can get behind. Which brings us to the biggest problem involving Resident Evil, the character of Alice. Here's my main gripe with her. She doesn't exist in the fucking games! Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? She totally supersedes every character from the game the minute she shows up on screen. They're all completely irrelevant. They have no bearing on anything. And when they finally do show up, they're there only to fill space and some fucking dialogue. They're also completely outclassed by the skills of Alice. These are characters that survived these situations in the games, but in the movies, they're completely worthless. They're there just to help Alice when she needs a break. That's it! This whole movie solely exists to tell the story of somebody we've never met. Imagine you're watching a movie about the Super Mario Brothers, and instead of Mario, Luigi, and Peach, there's some guy named Tim in it. That's what it's like to watch Resident Evil. Anderson wanted to have a female lead, and I think that's totally cool and the right way to go. My problem is, this could have been easily accomplished by just having Jill be the main character. The audience can at least relate to Jill. She's a normal human being, minus the fact that she's like a special forces operative. She's not Alice. Alice is the Superwoman of killing zombies, and no one can relate to Superwoman. Let's take a moment and talk about Mila Jovovich's acting ability, which I think we can sum up best with the following.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Okay, that's not fair. Mostly because I love that movie, and she really wasn't that bad as Lilu. Mila Jovovich didn't really have a lot to work with when it came to the character Alice. She's really boring and uninspiring. She's a colossal piece of bad screenwriting. I'm not really sure why it was chosen to have her have amnesia. I mean, it makes her completely unrelatable. There's two things that I want to talk about. First, Anderson was trying to go for some weird Alice in Wonderland homage, which when you think about it, does Resident Evil really need Alice in Wonderland? Like, what the fuck was he thinking? And two, you could make the argument that Anderson was trying to write a character that was completely ambivalent to what was going on, but is the plot really that fucking complicated? The only thing that we learn about Alice is that she wants to take Umbrella down, which is pre-amnesia, but we have no idea why she wants to. Is she really that altruistic, or is she just doing it for the money? We just don't know. But I will say in defense of the character, at least they make her have to work to be a badass. She's only slightly a badass in this movie, because this movie only has one ridiculous Superwoman part. It's not until the sequels where things get ridiculous. You may be asking, what about the other characters? Are they any better? No, they all suck ass. Let's take a look at the Commando team. They're pretty much cookie-cutter characters. We learn nothing about any of them. I can describe them in one to a few words. Number 1, leader.
You and I have the same employer. We all work for the Umbrella Corporation. The mansion above us is an emergency entrance to the hive.
2, medic.
Following.
3, apathetic guy.
Come any closer and I'll fire.
4, computer McFuckup. 5, laser bait.
You're going into shot. Stay away!
6, jumping laser asshole. And 7, pouty.
Control.
Give me that fucking switch right now. I'm gonna fry your ass.
Speaking of pouty, let's talk about her. Even though Alice is the single reason as to why this series is shit, she at least tries to exude some range of emotions. The same can't be said about Pouty, otherwise known as Rain. This character is ripped straight out of the Romero script, which was ripped straight out of Aliens. Vasquez here, I mean Rosie, We Live Here Now, Rain, is about as bland as characters get. Her only notable trait is that she makes a pouty face. And I figured people wouldn't believe me, so I decided to keep count. Mind you that this is not every clip possible, just a rough estimate to get my point. With that, I give you my newest piece, Rain, a pouty face performance. Says I'm picking on her or her acting ability, all I have to say is fuck you. Because check this clip out of Michelle Rodriguez from the making of video.
Rain's a...
Yeah, She can smile and look normal. She chose this pouty face for her look. Is that supposed to make her look tough and big and bad? It just makes her look like a fucking baby. She looks like she's pissed off that her mom didn't give her a cookie. Leaving behind Pouty, that brings us to our villain of sorts, Spence. He is the whole reason things went to shit in the lab. See, he ends up eavesdropping on Alice with what looks like to be a Bigfoot gun, and this is where things kind of go wrong. In his brain, he misinterprets her intentions to bring down Umbrella to mean killing everyone and selling the T-virus on the black market. You might be asking yourself, why? And what good would come of selling a weapons-grade virus on the black market? Well, it probably wouldn't work out all that well. The thing about this plan is Umbrella was selling the T-virus to the military, which is ultimately just as bad, but they have checks and balances to keep them from using it in most cases. Selling it on the black market allows any nut to get a hold of it. A terrorist, a rogue nation, they could just set it off and bring the whole fucking world down. Which would mean all of the money that Spence got from selling this shit would be completely worthless if the world ended. Yes, and before some asshole mentions, well, what about the antidote? Yes, he has an antidote, but it may not work. Like most viruses, it's probably going to mutate, making that fucking antidote completely worthless. This whole plan is stupid. You sell it on the black market, you're probably going to end up killing everyone, and you're probably going to get money that you're not going to be able to use because society's not going to exist. Could somebody explain to me how this plan is like anything she fucking wanted? I guess this movie just hammers home the old idea that men just assume what women want, and in this case, that's correct. Because this guy is a fucking idiot.
Fuck off.
And that brings us to our last character, Matt, who isn't a cop but a sort of environmentalist.
Makes it easier to work underground, thinking there's a view.
Ooh, that's deep, man. Honestly, I feel like Matt should have and probably is the main character. Matt arrives at the mansion posing as a police officer but is arrested by Pouty and co. Later on, he finds his sister zombified. Alice kills her, leaving Matt to tell her that his sister was attempting to expose Umbrella with an inside source. Not too much later, it's revealed that Alice was that source. It's during this moment that Matt shows emotion at the loss of his sister. It's the first time the audience has any reason to try and empathize with any of the characters. We feel Matt's pain. And that's the last time anyone showed any emotion with this movie, because I can guarantee you that no one was all weepy-eyed when Apathetic Guy was bit.
See how easy that was?
Having talked this much about the characters, I haven't even touched on the zombies, and honestly, they suck. They completely conform to the Romero mold, headshot, need to feed, all that shit. There's nothing original here, which is super fucking funny, considering Anderson stated in the making of feature,
what you didn't want to do is take the zombies from the kind of late 70s, early 80s movies and just do those again.
Yes, we don't want to do those zombies. You know, the zombie movies that were groundbreaking and defined the entire fucking genre. No, I'm just gonna copy it and say that we're doing something original. Oh, except for the fact that we completely ripped off one of Romero's most famous shots. Oh, but someone's gonna say, it's an homage. No, it's not an homage. You know why? Because you fired George Romero. You originally had the guy who created the entire fucking genre, and you still fired him. Not only did you fire him, you went 180 degrees in the opposite direction and made a movie that had nothing to do with the fucking source material. That's not an homage, that's a slap in the fucking face.
Blow me.
I'm not really sure what else to say about this film. I understand that a lot of people actually really like this film, and I'm not ripping on you if you do. That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. But for me, if you haven't noticed, I think this movie is atrocious. When I think of what could have been and what we got instead, I just feel like we all really missed out. In the making of, Mila Jovovich states,
Come on, what more can you ask for from Resident Evil?
a fucking lot, actually. It's not surprising that I stopped liking Anderson as a director following this, especially after his next movie, Alien vs. Predator. When you look at the 2000s, you really start to realize what a great decade it was for zombie movies. But for some reason, Resident Evil is just lost in the pack. Maybe it's because of its really crappy CG. Because it uses tired old cliches like bullet time and shell casings falling in slow motion. Maybe it's because the central plot revolves around people getting amnesia for no fucking reason.
Why can't I remember anything?
The hive has its own defense mechanisms. A nerve gas was released into the house. Secondary effects are varied, but can include acute memory loss.
Whatever the reason, Resident Evil will always be a pile of goat shit to me. So, till next time.
Come on.
Come on, what more can you ask for from Resident Evil?